Hello everyone! Wonderful to see everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have to be on my best behavior today because my husband is home and he could be lurking about. Well, actually, although he's worldly, he is a pretty fantastic husband and father. Even my JW mother says this, so that's good. You know, he was never raised with any religion at all, but from what he learned from his schooling, he realized that the Jehovah's Witness organization is a cult. And he's totally supportive of my videos. But he has said to me before, you know, there's only so many ways that you can beat a dead horse. And I'm like, no, there's more. There's more ways. So let's get right down to it, okay? So if you are a Jehovah's Witness, and or maybe not, maybe you just happen to know about the new conventions that are happening this summer, the regional conventions of 2017, there is going to be a symposium on the Saturday morning program. And the second talk of this symposium is called Safeguard Your Children from What is Evil. Now, here's a little test for you. I'm going to call it Susan's Oral Review. If the organization can have an oral review, then I can have an oral review too. Okay, so you're about to see, I'm going to show you 3 separate clips from this talk. See if you can identify just what exactly the organization is trying to stress, okay?
Parents, as shrewd ones, you are the first line of defense. You have the need to take all reasonable steps to protect your children from potential dangers, including the abuse that we're mentioning. Because you, as parents, are the first line of defense. Parents, you are the first line of defense.
Did you get that? Throughout the talk, the organization stresses the parents' role in protecting their children from abusers. In fact, here is a copy of the outline for this talk. Parents are mentioned 10 times in the outline alone, and even more in the talk itself, as you'll see from the following clips.
As parents, the challenge of sexual education falls upon the parents. It includes single-parent families. It includes blended families. It's a challenge for all parents. And so as parents, 2 believing parents, whether it's a single-parent family, a blended family, or a household where there's an unbelieving household, an unbelieving maid, unbelieving parent, all parents have the responsibility. Parents, my parents, responsible parents. Parents, ask yourselves, it's to be shrewd parents. What some parents are doing, single parents.
So there's no doubt that JW.org wants to put all the responsibility on the parents, with their parents this and parents that. And I don't disagree that it is the parents' responsibility to protect their children from abusers. But notice how he repeated 3 times for emphasis the phrase, parents are the first line of defense. It leads you to wonder, well then, who do they believe is the second line of defense? I'll give you a little hint from the following publication. So this is from their recent Jeremiah book. Under the headline there, Providing Protective Care. They're talking here about elders who were being appointed as shepherds, who would actually shepherd them and see to it that his people were protected from rapacious enemies. It says there that Christian overseers should not be negligent in caring for the congregation, striving to be alert to any sign of suffering on the part of your brothers, and are you willing to assist them promptly? And then we see here from the June 1st, 1999 Watchtower, It says here that the ancient shepherd David fearlessly protected his father's flock from predators. Christian shepherds have to show courage in order to protect the flock from any who might mistreat or oppress Jehovah's sheep, particularly the more vulnerable ones. The organization says then that the elders are there to protect the congregation members. They're kind of like the police of the congregation, where they are there to serve and protect. But unlike the police, congregation elders have the added responsibility of judging. And they prefer to do this in private, it seems, where there's no public records kept, where nobody really knows what went on. And if they do decide to punish the members through cutting them off and shunning them, they will lose their entire network of friends as well as their family. What if, though, it's the parent who is the abuser? The congregation, as we know, and the organization says that the parents are the first line of defense, but what if it's the parent who is the abuser? Then for sure, the congregation elders have to step in as a second line of defense for these poor children. And they cannot shirk this responsibility. That is, put it off onto somebody else. Because on the one hand, they're claiming to protect the flock. They cannot say that they're there to claim that they're there to protect the flock, but then shirk it off onto the parents. It's interesting that they also do this when it comes to calling themselves clergymen. You may be aware that Jehovah's Witnesses are quite adamant that the congregation elders are not clergy. They like to make sure that they have nothing to do with the clergy class of Christendom. Yet, if you've ever seen them fight in a court of law, in one of their many court cases involving child abuse, they will fight for the right to call themselves clergymen. And the reason is because they want to take advantage of clergy-client privilege, so that they do not have to necessarily go to the police if a child has been abused. It's really shocking and disturbing to know that they do this. The organization, though, sadly, has shown itself to be more concerned with protecting their own legal assets than with protecting children. The fact that their policy has elders call their legal department when a rape is committed and not the police speaks volumes. If a crime is committed like robbery or murder, there's no doubt a Jehovah's Witness would call the police. But when a child is raped, also a crime, they call their legal department. You'll also see up on the screen here a recent elders letter that went out to all elders. And just look at how many times they say, call the legal department, call the legal department, call the legal department, immediately call the legal department, call the service department, call the legal department. Whenever any of these things happen, whenever there's a crime that's committed involving a child and it's a rape or molestation, they say, don't say nothing about calling the police. They're saying, call the legal department. That is their big concern. So what do the elders do when a child comes forward claiming to have been molested? Well, as we just saw, they will call their legal department to protect themselves. They won't be calling the police. They will be told by their legal department if they are required by law to call the police based on where the molestation was alleged to have occurred. But if the law does not mandate them to call the police, they won't report it at all. And then they will conduct their own amateur investigation. And I say amateur because they're not trained in any way the way police are to investigate these kinds of crimes. They have no forensic experience at all. And they limit very much whom they speak to because it's an organization that is draped and cloaked in secrecy. They will also then speak to the one who is accused.
The sum in total of their investigation will be going to a pedophile and say, did you do it? Nope. Well, okay, guess we better go on then. Sorry we bothered you.
Yeah, because pedophiles are known to tell the truth, right? Shocking as that seems, what was just said here is all backed up in this 1995 Watchtower. It says, if there is some valid reason to suspect that the alleged perpetrator is still abusing children, a warning may have to be given. The congregation elders can help in such a case. Otherwise, take your time. Eventually, you may be content to let the matter drop. And notice the second paragraph on the second column. What if the sufferer decides that he wants to make an accusation? Then the two elders can advise him that in line with the principle at Matthew 18, verse 15, he should personally approach the accused about the matter. If the accuser is not emotionally able to do this face-to-face, it can be done by telephone or perhaps by writing a letter. Or perhaps, it says further down, the one accused will confess, and a reconciliation may be achieved. What a blessing that would be. Yay, you did it. Yes, I molested you. Oh, joy of joys. And notice it says further down, if the accusation is denied, the elders should explain to the accuser that nothing more can be done in a judicial way. And the congregation will continue to view the one accused as an innocent person. The Bible says that there must be 2 or 3 witnesses before judicial action can be taken.
Bill Bowen says if you want to get an idea of how the church sweeps cases under the rug,
good afternoon, Watchtower.
Just listen to part of a conversation Bowen recorded a little over a year ago with an official in the Jehovah's Witness legal department.
Good afternoon, legal department.
Bowen calls seeking advice on how to handle a suspected molestation case involving a young girl and her father. Instead of being told to report it to the police, Bowen is told to confront the suspected abuser.
You just ask him again, now, is there anything to this? If he says no, then I would walk away from it.
Yeah.
Leave it for Jehovah. He'll bring it out.
Yeah.
But don't get yourself in a jam.
Again, there was no insistence that this matter be brought to the authorities in the outside world.
So notice they were talking about an alleged molestation that occurred between a father and his daughter. And the elder at Bethel was advising the elder on the phone to just walk away. Leave it in Jehovah's hands. Do nothing. It really does remind you of that picture I showed earlier, of the Good Samaritan, and how J.W. Org is not the Good Samaritan. They see someone lying on the side of the road. They hear about a child that's been molested by her father. They do jack squat. They could call the police. They could call Child Protective Services, but they prefer to just walk away. Just walk away. It's absolutely sickening and callous that they are aware that this girl is potentially being molested by her father, but instead of pulling her out of the situation and trying to help her, they just leave her with her abuser. Here's an organization that claims to abhor child abuse. This is from that elder's letter that I showed earlier. Note where it's highlighted there. Jehovah's Witnesses abhor child sexual abuse.
Jehovah's Witnesses abhor child sexual abuse.
By spokesman J.R. Brown.
Jehovah's Witnesses feel child abuse is an evil. It's an evil of our time. It's an evil in our society. And so we abhor it.
But the facts show that what they really abhor is not the child abuse, but the legal costs from the victims of the child abuse that they walked away from. They not only have a history of walking away from child abuse allegations, but they recklessly allow these child abusers to go preaching to others.
So where is this convicted child molester today? A man who, according to court records, has admitted molesting girls all his life. Dateline found him going door to door, a Jehovah's Witness in good standing, evangelizing to people who know nothing about his record. His own son, Carl, says the church should know better.
He's a sexual predator. When he goes door to door, he has a craving for young juvenile girls, as he puts it. He's looking at that child, having those immoral thoughts in his mind while he's there.
You're Wayman Ivory?
Yeah, and who are you?
You're a convicted violent child rapist, and you're out here in the neighborhood?
No, wait, no.
1992 or so? A 9-year-old girl?
No, you got it all wrong. You got it all wrong.
Did you get convicted? Are you on the pedophile registry list?
No, I'm not.
Violent offender?
No, you got it all wrong, mister.
Do I need to call 911? Are you supposed to be around children up and down the street here?
What you need to do is go.
No, I think you need to go, and you should not be proselytizing when you're a pedophile or rapist. Child rapist.
If ever there was a group that needs the sun to shine on them, it's this one. Because when your doorbell rings on Saturday morning and your kid answers the door, you don't want that guy to be a child molester.
So does the organization have a responsibility towards its members? Yes, they themselves claim that they have this responsibility. And the government of Australia, at the Australian Royal Commission, after investigating 30 plus organizations, including JW.org, came up with these findings about the Jehovah's Witness organization. It says there, we do not consider the Jehovah's Witness organization to be an organization which responds adequately to child sexual abuse. We do not believe that children are adequately protected from the risk of sexual abuse for the following reasons. The organization relies on outdated policies and practices, not subject to ongoing and continuous review, wholly inappropriate and unsuitable for application. The two-witness rule in cases of child sexual abuse shows a serious lack of understanding of the nature of child sexual abuse. Internal disciplinary system, not child or survivor focused. It is presided over by males, little or no choice about how their complaint is addressed for the survivor. The sanctions are weak and leave perpetrators of child sexual abuse at large in the organization and the community. The organization has inadequate regard to the risk that the perpetrator might reoffend. The organization's general practice of not reporting serious instances of child sexual abuse to police or authorities is a serious failure by the organization to provide for the safety and protection of children in the organization and in the community. When you claim to shepherd and protect your members, including the vulnerable ones, you cannot simply shirk this responsibility just because the going gets tough. Can you imagine a reckless lifeguard blaming the parents of a drowned child that they were supposed to be protecting? Imagine their conversation to the police afterwards. Well, we heard there was a danger, but we chose to walk away from it. What good is a lifeguard who walks away from his post? What good is an elder who does nothing to help the vulnerable ones within the congregation? The organization wants to put all the responsibility on the parents, yet they foster an atmosphere where parents ignore all common sense and put all their trust in the elders.
And what did her father, Ruben Garza, do?
Report it to the police?
No, never mentioned report it to the police. Take care of it in the congregation.
Ruben Garza, who was one of the church's lay ministers or elders, says that's precisely what Jehovah's Witness leaders had taught him. And so instead of going to the police, he and his wife Alejandra called the elders back in Othello.
But let me say the obvious. I mean, your daughter had been raped. Didn't you think, I gotta go to the cops?
That was my first reaction. But as a witness, first you gotta go to the elders when you have a problem.
And victims of abuse and their parents who tell the elders that they want to go to the police or who did go to the police have been disfellowshipped.
So I called my elders and I said, look, I'm taking it to the police.
What did they say?
Don't. Or else.
Or else what?
That's what I said. I said, or else what? And he said, just don't. I said, what? I'll be disfellowshipped? If I take it to the police, is that what's going to happen to me? And he said, yes, you will be disfellowshipped. And I was just like, what? You're going to disfellowship me for being raped, yet the guy who raped me is still a Jehovah's Witness? And they said, don't. Don't take it to the police. You will be condemned by God.
Following an investigation, Manuel Belize was charged with molestation and rape. And the church? Erica says her California Kingdom Hall not only shunned her, but shunned her family as well.
What happened?
Was removed as an elder.
So they kicked you out?
Yes, they did.
Erica felt abused, abandoned by her church, and alone.
Parents and victims of abuse have been talked out of going to the authorities by elders. There's this idea, well, why would you go to Satan's world to help you? Leave it in Jehovah's hands and in Jehovah's organization, because they will deal with it. Just think about it for a moment. If you knew that or thought that there was a serial killer in your neighborhood, would you wait on Jehovah or would you call the police? Would you walk blindfolded down a freeway and expect Jehovah or his organization to come to your aid and help you? So why is it that Jehovah's Witnesses throw all common sense out the window when it comes to child abuse and molesters who do these things? It makes no sense. Take a look at the following clip from the Australian Royal Commission, where they were interviewing an elder.
And we were having an informal conversation about how BCB was feeling and coping, etc. And her husband said that they were thinking of taking the matter to the Royal Commission. And I asked a question. I said, but what would that accomplish? Sorry, my mouth is dry. Other than dragging Jehovah's name through the mud.
So you'll understand how in you asking the question, what would that achieve other than dragging the name of Jehovah through the mud? That would be understood as a discouragement to go to the Royal Commission.
It might be understood that way, but that's not how it was meant. It was an informal conversation. I asked the question, what would it accomplish? Yes, I was thinking out loud, and thinking back on it, I shouldn't have said the rest of the sentence.
No, he shouldn't have said that. But no doubt he said it with the idea of discouraging them from going forward and speaking to the authorities and listening to their God-given consciences to do this. We can see what happened in Australia at the Australian Royal Commission, that the organization has a history of never going to the authorities. After over 1,000 abusers, not once did they go to the authorities. And I know they say, yes, you can go to the authorities, and it's your God-given right to go to the authorities. They will say that, and certainly they won't try to physically stop you from going. But as we can see, they will make you feel that you're going to Satan's world for help when you really should be going to Jehovah's organization for help. They will make you feel that you're going to besmirch Jehovah's name. And if you do go forward, you will find yourself quickly ostracized from the organization, especially if this becomes big news. Because they don't like this. They will call it causing divisions, and you may find yourself disfellowshipped and or your family disfellowshipped.
What remains unanswered, though, is why the church gets involved at all with investigating what are criminal matters. And just how often do they turn one of their own into authorities? We asked the church for some examples, proof that they're as tough as they say they are on members who abuse children. The church waited 6 months, but finally offered us 2 cases. And right away, we noticed something. In both cases, the victims were Jehovah's Witnesses, but their alleged molesters were not. They were non-believers from outside the church.
The organization frequently blames the victims, like they did in this horrendous case.
In New Hampshire, Paul Berry beat and sexually tortured his stepdaughter, Holly Brewer, from the time she was 4. But Holly's mother says that when she complained to church elders that Berry was beating Holly and her other kids, the elders told her to be a better wife and to pray more. She also says they never informed police as required by state law. The church denies that, saying she never told them of the abuse.
I'm not able to confirm or deny who exactly said what, but the way she was blamed and re-victimized is exactly what the organization does and what they want their members to do, as we can see from this Watchtower. This is from the February 15th, 2012 Watchtower. It says, I didn't want to have a Bible study. The night before, Steve had hit me as I tried to prove a point, and I was feeling sad and sorry for myself. But the sister made me think differently by asking, how many of those acts of love do you show towards your husband? My answer was none, for he is so difficult to live with. The sister softly said, Selma, who is trying to be a Christian here, you or Steve? Realizing that I needed to adjust my thinking, I prayed to Jehovah to help me be more loving towards Steve. Slowly things started to change. After 17 years, he stopped punching me. He accepted the truth. Sickening. So let's not blame the husband who punched you in the face. No doubt it's the fault of the wife. She needs to pray more, and she needs to be more Christ-like. I guess her head got in the way of his punches. So from all the millions and tens of millions of dollars that the organization has already paid out to victims of child abuse that they just simply walked away from, why is it that they don't report it to the authorities? Why do you think that is? And why don't they encourage their members to do this? And why is it they still don't even have this in their literature or from the talks that they give from the platform? Well, check out this Watchtower and see what you think. From the January 1st, 1986 Watchtower, see where I've got it highlighted there. It says, shocking as it is, even some who have been prominent in Jehovah's organization have succumbed to immoral practices, including homosexuality, wife swapping, and child molesting. So from this video, we've seen yet again that JW.org has squandered another opportunity to encourage victims of abuse and their families to go to the authorities to get the necessary help. Instead, they put 100% of the responsibility on the parents. And I'm not disagreeing that the parents have a massive role in protecting their children. Of course they do. But what happens when it is a parent who is the abuser? What role does the congregation have then to step in and help a vulnerable child, which they say they are there to protect? You may also be wondering, well, why don't parents call the authorities? Why is it up to the organization to call the authorities? Well, as you can see, we've got an organization here that does their best to make that look like a very unattractive and wrong thing to do. Why would you want to go to Satan's world for help? Why would you want to sully the name of Jehovah? And for ones who actually have listened to their God-given consciences and gone to the authorities, some of these ones have been disfellowshipped or ostracized by the congregation. They didn't put their trust in Jehovah. Why did they do that? The congregation rallies behind the child molester and leaves the victim out to dry. This is exactly what has happened, and it is absolutely disgraceful. They have punished these ones with disfellowshipping them, and they have completely alienated them from the congregation, any who actually tried to get help and tried to warn others. And they continue to blame the victims of abuse, as we saw. It must be the wife's fault. Why isn't she praying more? Why isn't she more Christ-like? It can't be the abuser's fault. And from what we've seen, there have been very prominent members within the organization who were child molesters, as admitted by the Watchtower. Perhaps this is why their policies favor the abusers and make it so difficult for the victims, the ones that they're supposed to be protecting. The Catholic Church has had to learn the hard way through lawsuit after lawsuit, and it seems like this seems to be the only way that JW.org is actually going to change. We know for years they laughed at the pedophile priest problems that the Catholics had, but at least they're apologizing to victims now and compensating them. JW.org, I've heard from various lawyers, are a good 10 years behind the Catholic Church, but it's all catching up to them now. They are now finding themselves in court as well and being forced to compensate their victims. And the world is starting to hear about it and realize that this is what has been going on for decades. Until then, they're going to continue to shirk their responsibilities, blaming the parents, blaming the world, blaming Satan, blaming everybody but themselves. But as I said, it's all catching up to them. So I'm going to end it there, lest I go off on a big rant. That's my show for today. And thank you so much for all of you for watching, and for those of you in the studio audience for watching as well. Many of the clips I showed were from a 2002 NBC Dateline expose that was done, that the organization actually warned their members not to watch. But this was actually instrumental in helping me to wake up. Not in 2002, although I was already out of the organization by then. It wasn't until a few years ago that I watched it, and it really helped to fully, if I wasn't awake before I watched this, I certainly am awake to the organization now. So I highly recommend that you watch it. I will post a link where you can view the entire program. Okay, so thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye-bye.